Hi everyone, welcome to another This Old Deck episode. So for this week's episode I'm looking at another deck from the official Deckbuilders guide, which came out in 1997, and this one's called Just Another Brick. It's a walls deck, hence the play on words there. It's in the category of decks in the book under extended stroke type 1.5. So what they did is they in that section, the decks that they list are legal in both extended and type 1.5 because of the way they've designed them. And I'm not going to go in a bundle of detail here. You can look it up. I'll include links to what extended and something called type 1.5, which was also called classic restricted, were in 1997. But extended is of interest because in the World Championships in August of 97, that was going to be the format. They were going to put in a format they were going to include, and that included basically every expansion from revised and every expansion from the Dark. So that will be the Dark revised, Fallen Empires, 4th edition Ice Age Chronicles, Homelands, Alliances, Mirage, Visions, 5th edition Weatherlight, and soon Tempest, although specific cards were excluded. And then extended became a thing for a number of years. And then you've got this thing called classic restricted type 1.5, which one way they say in the book of thinking about it is type 1 with the spoilers taken out. So this sort of extended, excludes the pun, but there's a list of banned cards which go beyond those cards that are restricted or banned in type 1. So there's additional ones that are banned in the classic restricted type 1.5 format. So it's this sort of bridge between something like type 1 and other formats. So it's still pretty powerful, but you've taken out a lot of the really egregious stuff. At least that's the idea anyway. Yeah. So, but it's still quite expensive in terms of buying into it because of just some of the cards that are featured. So I just thought it'd be interesting to look at a walls deck. It gives me an excuse to look at walls and things that care about walls. So this is why I've got a slightly different layout here for just looking at the deck, simply because it's a little bit easier in this format to jump around a bit more, because I need to do that when I'm talking about it. So we've got artifacts, enchantments, creatures, lands, instants, and then there is a sideboard. So we have Sword of the Ages, which is not a wall, but what's interesting about this is it's 6, so quite expensive to cast. It comes into play tapped. When you can get around to being able to tap it, so when it untaps, you can tap it, sacrifice it, and as many creatures as you control. And the sword does the combined power of these creatures' damage to one target. Sacrifice creatures and sword are then removed. They're exiled from the game entirely. And this was from Legends. And we'll talk about a bit more detail about this card in a moment. But of course in this deck there's one or two things you've got to watch out for, because several of the cards, because there are walls, are going to have very low power. That's not always the case. The disadvantage is walls is that under usual conditions they don't attack. They're defensive cards, and often as well the power is very low in relation to the toughness, but in this deck that's not always the case. So yes, we're going to be blowing up walls, but we're going to be blowing up walls where they do have a higher power that makes it worthwhile sacking them to the Sword of the Ages. Now in addition, we've got cards like Animate Wall, which you can play on a wall and it stops, it allows our creatures to attack as though they are not walls. And again, it's obviously more appropriate to play that on cards which are going to have some sort of power that you can attack in with, because attacking with a 0/6 wall unless you've got a way of increasing the power, it isn't really going to get you anywhere. We've got a blessing, which is a enchant creature card, so 2 white, single white, target creature blessing enchants gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you can enchant a creature in here, and then you can invest white mana into buffing that creature. And we've got fortified area, so 1 and 2 whites an enchantment, and all walls you control gain banding and get +1/+0. So you can see there's cards in here that are going to make walls more effective in various ways. We've got our land base, which is 9 forests, 9 plains, so it's a green 1 deck, and some fixing to help balance things out here. We've actually got a savannah in here, so I suspect this is our most expensive card in the deck. This would be from revised, so at that point the cheapest version of it, I suppose, however much it was at that point. There's 4 of those, so that fixes for green and white mana, and it counts both as plains and forests. I don't think there's any cards that particularly references plains and forests here, but we'll see. Anyway, instant wise, we've got 1 enlightened tutor, so we can use that to search for an artifact or enchantment card, of which we've got quite some nice quiet targets here. 2 swords to plowshares, so our creature removal, and 2 disenchants, our way of dealing with artifacts or enchantments. The rest of the stuff is creatures. There are 21 of these. This is in the order of ascending mana, so ascending casting cost. So what you'll notice is several of these do have quite high power. The advantage with walls again is because they're in terms of getting them out, cost wise they're relatively low, but you've got the downside of them not being able to attack because they're walls, unless there's cards in here which can change that status. So there's Tall Walls of Resistance, which is a 0/3 flying and has this interesting ability where when it's if it's dealt damage, you put a 0/1 counter on it. So if you're using it to block attacking creatures, then every time it blocks, and if it survives, it's going to get a 0/1 counter on it. So that's going to buff up over time. 2 Wall of Brambles, so 2/3 with Regenerate. So for 2 and a green, single green to regenerate. Carnivorous Plants, a 4/5 for 4 vanilla wall. So that's going to be quite a good one to use to sack to the Sword of Ages. Sunweb, which is a 5/6 for 4. Again, it's a wall. It also has flying, but it cannot block creatures with power 2 or less. But again, nice thing when you get to a certain point in the game to be able to sack to Sword of the Ages. We've got Walking Wall, which has the ability to attack stapled into its rules. So it's a 0/6 for 4, counts as a wall. But for 3, it gets +3/-1 till end of turn, and then it can attack this turn. It can't attack the turn it comes in under your control, though, so it's got summoning sickness. Wall of Pine Needles, which is 3/3 for 4 with Regenerate. Wall of Brambles was a 2/3 for 3 with Regenerate. And then Wall of Swords, which is a 3 and a white for 3/5 with flying. So we've got some pretty handy blockers in here, and we're both covering the ground and covering the air. Sideboard wise, obviously ways of rebalancing the deck to deal with certain threats. So we've got 3 Elephant Grass. So black creatures can't attack you. It does have cumulative upkeep. Non-black creatures cannot attack you unless their controller pays an additional 2 for each attacking creature. So again, you can ramp up the defensive properties of this deck, which are already there, but you can take it further. We've got a way of gaining back life here. We've got Spirit Link, which we can enchant a creature, single white. For each 1 damage enchanted creature deals, you gain 1 life. More swords there, so more removal. We've got 1 copy of Balance. We've got more Wall of Resistance. We've got one fortified area in addition to one that's in the deck. So if we want to give have more chance to give our walls banding and +1 +0, we can. We've got a castle here, just a single copy, which we can sideboard in to our main board. Each untapped creature you control gets +0 +2 unless it is attacking, so another defensive card. And Royal Decree, so 2 and 2 white, cumulative upkeep, single white. Whenever a swamp, mountain, black permanent or red permanent becomes tapped, Royal Decree deals 1 damage to that permanent controller. So I thought would it be interesting to do, before I get on to individual cards that I want to talk about in the deck, to have a look at walls that are old walls. So these are ones that are in the 93 to 97 frames, seeing as that's, you know, the period we're talking about here really. So this is pretty cool. So I'm just looking at, you know, other walls from that era, so 97 and before, that were around. So if we go back in time to limited edition alpha, so you'll see this is the first printings. We've got an interesting set of walls here that are walls of something. So wall of swords, wall of air, wall of water, wall of bone, wall of fire, wall of stone, wall of brambles, wall of ice, wall of wood. It's a bit of an imbalance here. You can see we've got single white one, 2 in blue, 1 in black, 2 in red, and then 3 in green. And some of these are just vanilla. You can see here, wall of ice, you've got a 2 in a green, 0-7. So that's a pretty impressive blocker. Then we've got things like living wall, which counts as a wall, it says here. Artifact creature counts as a wall. And regenerates. That's because you can see here that there's not enough room at that point, or they weren't templating it to include the term wall on it. You can see all the others have got wall there, so it's really clear it is a wall. And so in the rules, it says walls can't attack. So because it says artifact creature, there is, in the rules text, this additional thing that's saying, oh yeah, and by the way, it's a wall. If you look at this in the errata text, you'll notice that, yeah, it's an artifact creature wall. So yeah, we're back in the days of this earlier template. So we've got things like walls of spears. So we're now moving into, this would be what? Antiquities and legends. So you can see quite a few legends in walls. Wall of light, wall of vapor. This very freaky wall of wonder. It's 2 and 2 blue for 1/5. 2 and 2 blue gain. +4 -4. So it makes it pretty fragile. Takes it down to makes this thing where it goes from being a 1/5 to being a, yep, you guessed it, 5/1, and it can attack. Protection from white. This 1 damage done to wall by creatures with enchantment cards played on them is reduced to 0. Wall of putrid fresh. So lots of really interesting interactions here. Wall of tombstones, which has a star on the toughness, 1+ star. Number of creatures in your graveyard. So we got wall of dust, wall of earth. So you can see the loads in here from legends. Wall of heat, wall of opposition. Coniferous plant was from the dark. You saw the one that we had a slightly different version of it. We got necropolis. We have 1 in Fallen Empires. There's several here in Ice Age. As you can see, we go through these sets where there'll be quite a number of walls in a particular set. And often at the very least, you know, 1 in each colour, but often there will be 2. And we got a group here of artifact creature walls as well. Interesting spell here. So we've got multiple different things we can, you know, different mana sinks here. We've got +1 +0, +0 +1, and then Snow Fortress deals 1 damage to target creature with flying that is attacking you. And of course, if you've got excess mana, you can invest it in this multiple times over, depending on how much mana you've got. Dark Maze, 4 and a blue, 4/5/0. Activation cost here. Dark Maze can attack this turn. At the end of turn, remove Dark Maze from the game. Dark Maze cannot attack the turn it comes under your control. So sort of one and you're done with the attacking there. There's Wall of Kelp. Spits out tokens. Wasn't there some combo deck built on Wall of Kelp? Trying to remember. Anyway, Cemetery Gate. Whipvine. There's this interesting one, Shield Sphere. So 0 to cast 0/6. Counts as a wall again. If Shield Sphere is assigned as a blocker, put a -0/-1 counter on it. Sunweb, Wall of Resistance, Floodgate, Wall of Corpses. So there's more wall ofs here in Mirage. Then we've got one cropping up in Portal, first printed in Portal. Wall of Granite, 0/7 that can't attack. Cinder Wall blocks destroy, end of combat, 3/3 for single red. Wall of Diffusion, Wall of Essence, Wall of Tears. So another set of wall ofs. There's Wall of Blossom from the same set, Stronghold. And then also we have, in addition to the Wooburg ones, we also have a colourless one as well. Wall of Nets was in Exodus. And Portal Second Age has a wall in it. Interesting artwork. Was that ever... Yeah, so that was reprinted. In Odyssey, we get this new artwork. It's interesting. There's quite a big difference, isn't there, in the presentation? Well, that might be because of the foil version. Okay, those look very similar, don't they? Avacyn Restored, redid the artwork, and there's also Magic 14. Shimmering Barrier. Here you can see they've just got the reminder text on a number of these over time. Walls cannot attack. So we're now moving into Urza Saga. There you can see it's interesting artwork. Wall of Glare, Alabaster Wall. Look at you see another group here. Wooburg plus colourless. Carrying Nemesis here, of course, it's easier to spot the rarities as well now. So I started using different colours in the rarity symbols. It's pretty creepy. So we've got a lot of like 1-ofs, 2-ofs here in different sets. But pretty interesting stroke disturbing artwork. Do we have another group here now? 1, 2, just 3 colours. So again, some wall ofs, but not a whole cycle. And that's it up to Scourge. And obviously we've got walls beyond that, but I was really interested in, everything sort of up to that sort of particular style of border. And then there's a number of cards that care about walls. So they're not walls necessarily themselves, but they care about cards that are walls. I had to also be careful here because I was looking for walls in the rules text, is to make sure I didn't find wallers, because a lot of those came up, like Root Waller and stuff like that. That had self-referencing in the rules text. So you get things like Animate Wall, Invisibility, Siren's Call, Nettling Imp, Thicket Bag Basilisk. So things on it, like any non-wall creature blocking Basilisk is destroyed, as is any creature blocked by Basilisk. Creatures destroyed this way deal the damage before dying. So let me just look at the tags. Is that in as, yeah, Olde blocking death touch. Olde blocking death touch. It's a bit of a mouthful. Alibaba, some gin. So we got a number here from Arabian Nights, couple from battering antiquities. This is a really interesting modal one where one of the modes is a wall, but they aren't all walls. Oh, there's Evil Eye. Glyph of Doom, so the glyphs here seem to be caring about walls. Yeah, there's a lot of walls or stuff to do with walls in Legends here, we can see. It's Marble Priest. So of course here it's both walls and non-walls. So yeah. So some of these might work for you in a walls deck, some of these might work against you, just depending on how that's worded. Got a Chaos Charm that cares about walls. A charm that cares about walls. There's Rock Basilisk, red green. Core of the Medusa. Rolling Stones. Walls can attack as though they were not walls. So yeah, another card there that can mess with the what walls can and can't do. And some things that can get through walls. Yeah, I've got an interesting group of cards here that have some sort of mention to walls here, and these are from Onslaught. There we go. Choose a creature type other than Legends or Wall. Each creature type becomes that type until end of turn. Target creature cannot be blocked except by walls until end of turn. So of course you can see here how certain cards, you know, work better or worse in walls decks in certain meta, you know, so walls decks and cards that care about walls in various ways are obviously going to work better in certain metas. And, you know, you'll see walls come and go over Magic's history, and in some sets, you know, there might have been a specific wall deck that was, you know, strong enough to play. So let's just circle back and look at some of the cards in the deck, cards we haven't seen before. So I'm going to mainly focus on here on the, you know, the cards that either care about walls or did something interesting in the deck, which maybe we've not seen before in this series. So we've got Animate Wall, and that was, you know, reprinted up until 6th edition. This is the 5th edition version, but it's been kicking around for quite a while. This is a change from the most recent wording, as was the case in the past. Animate Wall can now enchant only a wall. Play only on a wall. There. Where does it say target wall? Yeah, anyway. Was that not the case? Target wall can now attack. Target wall's power and toughness are unchanged. Interesting. They changed that reminder text. So yeah, turns off Defender. So yeah, there's quite a number of cards that do turn off Defender. So walls, by their, you know, that was the thing, you know, the fact that it was wall string wrapped into it was the fact that it was a defender. So walls were defenders. But if you go later on in Magic's history, you can see that specifically with walls starting to put the word defender in there, but also there are creatures that are not walls which are also defenders as well. And yeah, there are abilities in which to manipulate that state. And we've got 12 tribal wall cards. So those will be ones that, you know, do something to walls in a way that's going to be very useful in a deck where you're playing a lot of walls. So this is interesting. Sword of Ages. Yeah, this ability to, you know, sack out cards and do damage based on something on the card. So here it's based on power. Like I said, in some decks you wouldn't want to do this on certain walls, but there are walls in here which have a high power on them. So burn any, it's this fling idea where sacrifice a creature, deal its power and damage to something. But the nice thing is here is you can like stack them up like pancakes. Also this term called egg, I'm going to do a number of episodes which look at eggs in lots of different ways. So in this definition we've got artifacts that have to be sacrificed to do something. That's the egg. I'm also going to do an episode that's just going to talk about things that are called eggs as well. So yeah. Blessing. Again, you can see a number of these, you know, weren't reprinted. That's not to say there weren't functional reprints later on, but it's interesting how, you know, whatever you want to call it, like the evolution of a card just seems to stop dead at certain points in Magic. So, referred to as a shade pump. Effects that give an arbitrary random 1/1 until end of turn. Okay. Yeah, so you can see here we've got. Is that because? Hang on. Did I? Yeah, I think I misspoke here. Let me go back one stage because it's probably because there's too many here. Oh yeah, sorry, Magic 2014. Yeah, I missed that. So it did get reprinted in Magic 2014. So there's this massive gap between 4th edition and 2014 when it was reprinted. Okay. So yeah, that previous ones it was rare. That was reprinted at uncommon. So yeah, this is a rare. So, good old shade pump, which we've had come up before. And you've got creatures, you know, where it's actually stapled into the cards. It'd be interesting, actually, one thing we could do with this is just to get a feel is say, okay, that might give you a better idea if we do release date and first printing. Cards that might do similar things. But it might be an interesting card to play around with. So that's target creatures, that's all creatures. Yeah. Sword of the Chosen, so let's just see what artifacts might have that on it. I suspect the most is going to be what? Creatures, yeah. There's Frozen Shade. 0/1 for 2 in a black, but yeah, if you've got excess black mana, knock yourself out. What's that one? 5th edition. Yeah. Creepy artwork. What's your cheapest black border one? Huh. 4th edition. I wonder if I've ever opened any of these. It's 4th edition, looks really washed out, doesn't it? 5th edition, what rarity was it? Common. I'll have to look through it, see if I've got that anywhere. I've opened some 4th edition stuff, so it's quite possible. I'm always looking for good candidates for the 15 cards episodes and variations thereof, so that's why I'm always curious when I'm doing this. I always keep my eyes open for stuff like that. So we did artifacts, we did creatures. I'm assuming there's some sort of instant speed shade pump. Yeah, from Onslaught. And although you can see it coming, the only sorceries, no. Any so what are the legends here? Yeah, shade pump legends. I don't know what it is about this card. I do really like it. Just I think it's one of these cards I get fascinated by. What are they called? I suppose this isn't. So it hasn't put it in that category, but you know, there's these sort of cards that I'm trying to remember when, you know, equipment came in, and there's a number of cards that are sort of pre-equipment, pre the idea of equipment, and I just love cards that sort of target. They're artifacts that target something else and do something to it, and they have like this that equipment, feel to them. What I was curious is if there was any. This should come under legend, but were there any, or are there any planeswalkers that? Because that would have come under legendary. I think you can just do that actually. Yeah, so no planeswalkers that have, you know, strict shade pump. They might have something similar, some sort of pump, but not shade pump. At least according to the tags anyway. So this is pretty fascinating artwork when you start to look really close. So if you look here, you have this cat, but then there's this like what? This is a furry batwing here, isn't it? So yeah. Very interesting. And a number of different versions of artwork for that. Let's have a look at the artwork actually. So this was the one in 10th edition. That's Dominaria Remastered. I'm assuming is that because it's from the list. Okay. That's why that happens. So, what have they done here? Where are we? So your new artwork in an old border. But at what point did that first get used then? Would it be 9th edition? Is that style of art? Yeah. Huh. How much is the Legends version? $20. Is there any versions of that? No. It's all, that style one is all either white bordered or gold bordered. Oh, right. I always forget the Renaissance came out in black borders, didn't it? Yeah, forget about that. Because Chronicles didn't, which was another aggregate set around that time. And Royal Decree. Oh, actually, sorry. One thing I did want to do is just look under here. What tags have we got? Yeah, Old Lifelink. Oh, that was colour shifted to Vampiric Link. Right. That's right. Of course. Before Lifelink was keyword, it was a triggered ability. Okay. Yeah. And then Royal Decree. It's not been reprinted. It does have cumulative upkeep. Whenever a swamp mountain black permanent or red permanent becomes tapped, Royal Decree deals 1 damage to that permanent's controller. Will trigger a maximum once for each permanent becomes tapped, even if that permanent meets multiple criteria. Right. So it's like a reverse lucky charm, I suppose. It's like unlucky charm if you're black or red. Yeah. It's funny. You get pinged. You get burnt. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It was something a little bit different. I want to twist it up a bit. I was hesitant to dedicate a whole Scryfall shenanigans to walls. So this is my attempt to try and sort of do the two together. And see how well it turned out. But I enjoyed it anyway. It was pretty interesting looking through and seeing some of these walls. And relating it back to an old school deck. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now. And I will catch you in a future episode.